Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Pause the video right now to check out my social media, my radio show, and thatdrummerguy.com. And most of all, enjoy the following presentation. Hello?
Hey Josh, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Of course, no problem.
Oh, awesome. Well, of course, we're here to talk about the brand new album from Twitching Tongues, Gaining Purpose Through Passionate Hatred, which is coming out on March 9th. I've just gotten the chance to be able to check this out over the weekend, and I absolutely love what you guys are doing on this album. I mean,
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, it's just, I love the direction, I love the lyrics that's going into it, the tone of your voice, it just sounds incredible on this album, and of course the music that goes along with it. I mean, you guys just hit it out of the park on this one.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. We worked our asses off for a solid 2 years on this one, so it was like this bottled up secret that we had for all this time, because we waited a little longer than we normally do to put things out. So from the time between like recording last year in the summer to this coming March, it's been so hard to not show people things and just want to play it all and talk about it.
Oh yeah, I can definitely imagine. I mean, when you get all these new songs, you just want to instantly show everybody what you're up to, and you just get so excited about it, and that actually goes right into it. I mean, how does it feel to for March 9th to finally be able to get this album out?
It's pretty indescribable. We got to work together more collaboratively than we ever really have with this new lineup that we have. So the way things fell into place was just so easy this time. And like the recording process was extremely satisfying. Like everybody did their part. And I'm hoping that shows to everybody. And I don't know, we couldn't be happier that we're finally getting to show people what's going on this record. And it's such a crazy decision to make, to choose what singles to show people for us, because no one song kind of represents what's happening in the full spectrum of the record. So like even just 2 songs being out is hard to gauge, like, okay, what's happening as the listener, like what is going to happen on this record. So hopefully these 2 now show people you're going to get a little of this, a little of that, and not just kind of one thing. Every song you're getting a new record, essentially,
Yeah, that's definitely the way I feel about this album. And, I gotta agree. I mean, like, when you listen to the album, I can only imagine what you guys went through to be able to pick out, like, the right 2 songs to be able to show this off. But,
it was really hard.
Yeah, with Harakiri and, today coming out with Kill For You. I mean, I think those are 2 excellent choices to be able to show off.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was definitely down to 2 of those 2 and a couple other ones. And one of them that we all kind of wanted to be a single didn't really get to be. And that's Forgive and Remember, track 5. So we're hoping that once the album's out, we can kind of push that and give it some attention. We love that song, and we're especially psyched about that one.
Oh, very cool. So with that in mind, I mean, obviously with a new lineup, with some new flavors that's coming into the band, when did it really start to feel right when you were in the practice room or when you were writing songs out?
So we like I said, we took some time after our last record and knew that we wanted to wait and kind of gauge to see what the plan was going to be. And then once the lineup kind of really started taking fruition, ideas just started coming, and we started telling each other things. And we have this demo process where we'll sit in a room for a bit, put a couple things together, demo a song, then come back a week later, demo it again, come back a week later, demo it again. It feels like it's never finished to us. It just kind of escapes, If we had the chance, we would take 5 years on every record just because it would be cool. But this time around, things just felt so easy and felt so right that everybody was sharing these ideas and parts that it was very early on in the process that was just like, hey, we can fucking do this. We can do this again. And having Sean as our kind of third piece of the puzzle when writing is something that we had never had in the past. It was for every song, it was just me and Taylor, me and Taylor, me and Taylor. And having Sean as this third kind of variable for parts and solos this time around just really it helped us write our stuff too, because we were just inspired that we had this other brain to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, and like being in bands in the past as well, I mean, I know how important those connections are. I mean, whether it's just a couple people that are writing, just one person, the entire band, whatever that is, and whenever that formula gets messed with for whatever situation, it's like that's always going to affect the dynamic of the band. But in this case, I really think it was for the best. I mean, I love 100%. The songwriting that's going into it. I mean, I can really feel the love and passion in this album from all of you guys.
That's great. That was the whole thing, and that's the whole idea behind the title too. Is just taking these things that have affected you and using it as a tool to overcome them.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask about that too, if that was from a self-perspective on there. And yeah, I mean, it's just like that is such a great title, and it can be so relatable.
I'm hoping so. I think that is something, and maybe in a broader sense, that everybody can relate to. Most people say, like, no, I try not to hate things, but it's not always that simple. It could be hatred towards your government, towards your ex-boyfriend, towards the kid that fucking bullied you in middle school. Using those things and channeling them passionately to do something positive for yourself.
Yeah, and I've always learned that, especially with the heavier the music is. I mean, with the thematics of it, like whether it's a little sad or angry or something like that. I mean, when you listen to that when you are feeling sad or angry or negative, it really helps because it makes you feel like you're not as alone, that other people are going through other struggles as well, and you know that you're not the only one struggling.
Right, and there were dozens of records that did that for me as a kid and as a teenager. So if I can kind of connect to a few people in that same way, I'll know that the reason I'm doing this is justified.
And with that, I mean, obviously, when you listen to the album, I mean, you can really tell where all the directions are coming from lyrically. How did it feel to hear those songs back for the first time when everything was like prim and proper? How did it feel like a purge at all for you?
Oh, 100%. It feels like a purge instantly. Like, as we're recording it, it's like, oh my God, finally these things don't have to just live inside my head anymore, especially with like vocal melodies and stuff. Like, we generally don't demo vocals. We'll just go into the record and try out my ideas and work on some things. And this time it was like, as they were coming out, we were just, oh my God, fuck, finally.
Oh, that's so cool. And it's great to see that the vocal melodies did get some more work on there. I'm not saying anything bad about the previous albums because they're awesome, but I love your approach on this album. I mean, just everything, the highs, the lows, the mid-range, like everything when it comes to the vocal melodies and just matching up with the songs. I mean, it just feels absolutely perfection.
That is fantastic to hear. We definitely kept the live environment in mind more so this time. So figuring out where my range should end up and working around that, rather than just like, I'll do it, I'll record it, and then we'll see if I can do it live. Everything was executed with the intention of being done live in a realistic, totally organic way.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of that, actually a little over a month from now, you guys are going to be going on tour with Hatebreed for an almost month-long tour. I mean, that's awesome to be able to see that you guys are able to promote it so close to the album coming out.
Yeah, the timing of that was pretty serendipitous. We toured with them last year, towards the end of the year, and they had this second leg of the tour coming on, and it happened to fall a week to the day after our record's out. So it was like, yeah, come on, why not? Let's go.
Oh, so cool. And it's such a great lineup, too. I mean, it's 4 completely different bands, but I imagine when you go to one of the shows that are coming up, I mean, it's going to be great to be able to hear 4 different bands playing 4 different styles of heavy music, but it all makes sense together.
It does, yeah. I mean, and Hatebreed is the tying point between all different facets of extreme music. They've got fans from every corner, so that's great for us because we're at the same time kind of the weird band that doesn't fall into one specific thing. Like, we've got extreme death metal parts that go straight into a fucking ballad. So I think that's the perfect environment for us, where people who just appreciate every facet of extreme music can hear us and go, all right, this is for me.
And that's what really drew me into the band the first time I heard you guys, is I do love that diversity while it makes sense. I mean, rather than just putting riffs together just to say, hey, we can do all these different genres or whatever. All of your songs make sense together. Like, the changes make sense for a reason.
They do. And a lot of this on this album, it was definitely intentional. It was because with the last one, a lot of the complaints was like, hey, too much is going on. So we tried to keep it diverse, but not in a way that just doesn't add up. Like, we kept each song relative to its own spirit, so that once the next song hits, you know what you're getting into, rather than just being surprised and being caught off guard part after part after part.
Yeah, and that's another great thing about being able to do this upcoming tour with Hatebreed, and I imagine everything else that's going to be happening throughout the year, is because of the album's diversity, even if it is a little more scaled back, with its diversity, I mean, you're going to be able to adapt to those tours and know what heavy songs to play, what more melodic songs to play, and so on and so forth. I mean, you got so much in the repertoire now.
Yeah, that's a big positive, is with our discography now, it's like if we want to do a tour with Hatebreed, we have a batch of 8 songs that we can play. If we want to tour with somebody like Citizen, we have a batch of fucking 8 songs that we could play that perfectly make sense for that environment. It's cool. I mean, that's the big plus of just being the band who does whatever they want, but we have to figure out doing whatever we want in a way that doesn't confuse people or turn them off. And I think for the first real time that we've executed that, like, this record is who we are, and hopefully that comes across.
Well, I can definitely see that from the fan perspective. I mean, and you're right. I mean, it is really hard to be able to get that perfect balance between making the music that you want to make and making sure that the fan base is going to still be there. You know, just like being able to have that integrity of the songwriting that you do, plus again, you know, just like making sure the fans are going to be happy. And I imagine when people are going to check this one out, I mean, obviously it's going to be a little different for some people. I mean, it's always going to be that way with new music, but once they really divulge into it, I think they're really going to understand where you guys are coming from and really love the album as much as I do.
That is great to hear. One can only hope the same.
So in speaking of that, after the Hatebreed tour, you also got a few more dates to be able to finish things off with touring, but what's going to be going on after that?
We'll see. Come with me. We're doing Europe in June. Europe in the UK with a band called Vane, who is so fucking sick. They're putting out their first LP this year on Closed Casket Activities, and we're psyched to be able to bring them out and do some stuff with them. We'll probably hit the US again 1 to 2 more times throughout the year. Hopefully we'll do something really cool in the fall that we'll be able to announce at some point in the near future.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I mean, between those 3 tours alone, I mean, you got like a Hatebreed and Crowbar and Sissy's Terrain on one tour. You got True Love coming up like immediately after that, and then you go over to Europe and tour with a band like Vane. I mean, it's, again, you know, just getting back into the diversity of it all. It's amazing that you're able to go through like 3 different tours like that and be able to adapt like that.
I mean, it's weird that seems normal for us, you know, and I think for other bands that maybe sound like parts of ours and other bands that sound like other parts of ours, it wouldn't be the same. But since we've kind of established since the beginning of our band that, hey, like, this is, we're weird, but we're us. Take it or leave it. Some people took it, some people left it. But here we are, almost 10 years later, still being weird, still being very much us. And it's cool to be able to do that in any environment possible.
Absolutely. So, in speaking of that, I mean, with such a great sounding songwriting process that went on with this album, how are you feeling now about like the next time that you guys start writing songs?
I think we're feeling very good. We've already definitely started throwing some ideas around about how we want the overall thing to feel, because no 2 of our records sound exactly the same. And that will probably still remain true after the next one, because there's definitely some things that we started to expand upon in this one that I know next time around we wanted to do a little more of. So it'll be along a similar line, but still we want to go bigger every time in a sense.
Oh yeah, and that's the important thing is making sure that it's the quality of the music rather than the quantity. I mean, if you were like pushing out
Absolutely.
records every year and feeling the pressure of being able to make a new release every year, like it could easily burn a person out. Where I would rather have the approach that you guys have, and take your time with it. Make sure it's the songs that you want to put out, and make sure it's what the fans deserve to hear.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a shame that that's what people are being taught music is supposed to be now, And it's cool that huge artists like fucking Drake and regular mainstream stuff, they can put out singles once a month and they'll be huge. But now it's like that's what music is being conditioned to be like, where a record comes out and people are like, cool, I'm psyched about this. What are you doing next month? Rather than Michael Jackson, Thriller, and Bad, which were 5 years apart. Hatebreed, Satisfaction, Perseverance, 5 years apart. I'd much rather take my time and be proud of something than just force things constantly and be stressed out all the time and trying to keep up. People should have to keep up with you rather than you trying to keep up with people.
Oh, absolutely. And it's I'm still of that mentality where it's like I was gracious enough to be able to get this album so far in advance and being able to check out every single song. I mean, and that's what is so important is like when you put out an album, like every song, every track is meant to be there for a reason, and I want to be able to listen to them enough to know what the purposes of those songs are. I mean, if it is meant to be a single, if it's meant to be more of an epic track, whether it's be like a thrasher, whatever the case is, it's just like when you guys go in the studio and make a record, I mean, you obviously don't go in with like oh, this is just filler. You want those tracks to actually mean something.
100,000% correct. And that's why this record is 9 tracks, The major label metal album is like 12 to 15. It's 9 tracks because all 9 are important to us. It's certainly we're not writing songs, we're writing albums, It's not like, okay, let's do a song that can maybe fit with this and fit with this. It's like, no, okay, here's the entire idea for this album. Which part of the idea do we want this song to represent? Nothing is there accidentally. Everything is there to be heard. And if you hear just the first 3 songs, then you haven't heard the record. You don't know how much more is kind of hidden and trickled throughout the record and how different everything is.
Yeah, and it's just I wish there was more of that mentality like you were talking about, like just like a really appreciating an album and just like a being able to take your time with it. And it's just like fans are amazing to have, but it's just when they're so conditioned like you were talking about to receiving new music every month, whether it's just a song or split, EP, LP, whatever the case is, no matter how hard someone can work, it's like when you're putting this much time and effort into it, I mean, you want people to really be able to appreciate it. And thankfully, there are still people like me out there that are just so excited when an actual album comes out, where you can tell that the band is taking their time, crafting these songs to be the best that they can, the best production, the best songwriting, and being able to support those songs in a live setting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's definitely seems like it's a much more rare mindset to have currently. So I wish that every artist on planet Earth would focus on writing albums and not on just writing songs. Writing cohesive listening experiences rather than something somebody's going to forget about in a month.
And with that, while I'm thinking about it, I mean, when you guys are able to do like all these great different tours and able to experience all these different styles of music, I mean, do you see that representation live where you feel that the other ones are writing the music that they want to make, they're trying to make the fans happy, they're just trying to keep their integrity in check?
I think in hardcore, that is very much the case because there's so little money involved that the only pressure that there really is from yourself, where it's like, okay, I want to write this stuff that I want to listen to. And rather than like, okay, we need to do this so we can get paid. And I think when you see bands do that, big, huge mainstream bands doing that annually, and there's fucking 30 writers for every song, you know that that's a super disingenuous thing that they're doing. And it's not something they're doing because they care. And it's not for the fans. It's all about the paycheck.
And I'm always curious about that too. Like when you see some of the bigger pop songs, and they do have like 30 different writers on there.
It's crazy.
Like it's like someone taking credit for like, oh, this part should have hi-hat. I should get a writing credit for there. I mean, I'm just curious on how all of that goes. I mean, when it's in like in a hardcore setting, you know, it's like it's usually the group of guys, or sometimes it's like one or two, three people.
It's the 4 or 5 guys, or the 2 main guys in the band doing everything.
Yeah. So when you get those,
that's why it's such a special thing to listen to every time.
Yeah, and you know that's the difference between like the pop 40 pop music and something like this new album is. Maybe others will be able to see it the way I do, maybe not, but I can just tell the genuine authenticity of this album. I mean, with there being a lot of anger and a lot of things that should and are talked about on this album, and of course the musicality that's going on there, it's just like there's genuine passion in this album, and I always gravitate more towards that. I mean, I'd rather have that authenticity behind a band, behind the songs, than something that's like the most clean production possible and lyrics that really don't mean anything but just sounds catchy, whether it's at the heartbeat rhythm or that really new slow stuff that's really starting to catch on now, rather than just making the music that you want to make.
I'm totally with you, and ultimately that's why I make music. It's because I love music, and I want more music I love to exist, and I would love to inspire somebody to write music that I love.
Well, I can definitely say, like, if the right people hear this album, and I just imagine that this album is going to be taking you even further than where you guys currently are, I can just really feel it. I feel like there is going to be that generation that may not be familiar with the band that hears something, whether it's like they listen to Harakiri or they go and see live coming up with Hatebreed or whatever the touring assessments are going to be coming up. I think you're definitely going to be inspiring a lot of people to think about new visions for music and want to be inspired to make music like that.
That's the goal. That's the one and only goal. So if that's the case, then we've done our job. We've succeeded.
Oh. That's so awesome. Well, I think it's a perfect send-off right there. Thank you very much for taking the time to be able to do this interview. It was awesome to be able to talk to you, talk about the brand new album, and you know, just like covering so much ground with the touring and talking about real insight with music. It was awesome to be able to get your insights and be able to think about things in a different way and just have some good discussion.
Of course, man. I appreciate you taking the time to interview me.
Oh, not a problem. Before we wrap things up here, is there anything else you'd like to mention that I hadn't brought up yet?
I'm not sure if there is. I really just I appreciate those in the world that still buy physical music, because that's another thing that we just spend so much time on and making sure is cool, making sure people are happy. As record nerds ourselves, we want to be happy with the physical product, and I don't think enough bands put the right amount of attention into that, and I think that they should. So thank you to the people that buy physical CDs or LPs, whoever you are. We appreciate it.
And I just want to say that when it comes to that physical release, the album cover just looks so awesome, and it'd be such a shame to just look at that through a thumbnail cover on iTunes or Spotify. I mean, this is something that deserves the physical format to be able to check it out.
It's definitely best seen on a 12 by 12 album cover.